Hey Smite fans, and welcome to the Smite Super Regionals. My name is Rainday, and of course I am joined by my man Anatoly, and of course Taco, the best Taco.
Thank you so much.
They will be here and supporting us on the analyst desk today. We're excited for a lot of great Smite action coming forwards, and what is going to take place is we've got amazing games. We're going to decide who is going to Worlds at this event. We've got two great ones for you today, but a couple of things coming up beforehand. Of course, Smite World Championship, that's where everyone is going, and that is, of course, where you want to go as well. We've got a promo ticket for you. If you watch all the action live, you can use the code REGIONALS and use it at the hi-rezexpo.com and basically get 25% off of your ticket. So that'll help you get in the doors a little quickly and I think make it so you can join in on the fun with all of us here. So we're excited. And, of course, we've got some other couple of good things, too. In-game, we've got a digital loot pack, and I think that's about 1,500 gems. You get a lot of great stuff. I can recommend this one personally. Totally. Taco, I don't know if you have it, but the Hades Chibi
skin. The Chibi Hades, that's what I'm all about. What about you, Taco?
Oh, I definitely think it's the cutest skin of all time.
Yeah, that is one of the exciting things. You also get a lot of great things as well. Hibi Chibi Hades, we mentioned, but the 2017 hero Apollo, the 2017 heroine Amaterasu, you get a ward skin, the Thundersticks global emotes, you get a recall skin, a divine chest roll. This is good stuff, so definitely try to pick that up as soon as possible. We'll be mentioning that out throughout this event. And, of course, you can link your accounts. This is something that we are introducing. If you want some free stuff, which I'm sure everybody wants.
Who doesn't like
Who doesn't love free stuff? We're actually going to be able to introduce a new feature called Drops, where if you link your account to Twitch, that is your hi-rez account, you'll be able to, by watching the Super Regionals, get free stuff in-game. It's very simple. That's it. Go to the link at the bottom of your screen, hi-rezstudios.com/myaccount. And you'll be able to go ahead and set that up. You'll get a chance at a cute roll. But again, it's just free stuff for watching Super Regionals.
That's right. And off of that free stuff, we also got some other cool stuff as well for the Super Regionals. The competition starts today for day number 1. The first set is going to be Orbit versus Obey. This is a best of 5, and the winner here will advance to Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on the line, clearly. And, you know, you have these two groups coming respectively from groups A and C. Orbit, of course, I think that they looked a bit cleaner, in my personal opinion, qualifying for Super Regionals than Obey. So I think it'll be a little bit troublesome for Obey, but at the same time, I mean, you know, these teams are ready to pop off for Worlds.
Orbit has definitely been one of those teams that were always at the top, but every time for the online phase, they've always been cruising by. But this time in the fall split, they've looked like the best team uncontested, and as a result now, they're going to be up against Obey, who's always been consistently inconsistent against the top teams. They've always struggled against Energy. They've always struggled against Orbit as well, so it's time for them to be put to the test.
Well, they are facing Orbit, one of the teams you mentioned they struggle against. What do they have to do? Who has to step up in this battle, so to speak, for Obey to get the better end of this deal?
In Obey, they have to... Actually, everybody has to play their part at this point. As it leans more towards that duo lane because PANDALIKE being recently picked up in that duo lane since the midway point of the spring split was what turned it around for formerly known as Hungry for More team. And since then, they've qualified to Smite DreamHack Masters. They've been able to make a run in the fall split as well now. They've been doing wonders. And next to PANDALIKE is also Ataraxia. And he's one of those unconventional hunters.
I think, if anything, PANDALIKE was a really good pick up for this team because of the fact that Ataraxia has always been one of those hunters. When you think of hunters, you tend to think of Emilito and Funballer, considering that they're on the top teams. But Ataraxia, at the same time, he's a really strong utility hunter, in my opinion. He goes for unconventional picks a lot of the times. You know, we've seen him bring out the Chiron before in the group stages. But I just think that he's incredibly smart and able to adapt easily into these hunter role situations in order to really help his team out.
I think like he knows a lot of his strengths and he understands his weaknesses. So he plays more towards the farm-oriented game. He doesn't really like to fight in the beginning of the early laning phase. He'll kind of wait it out, let his team set him up in these team fights, position himself accordingly. He's one of these hunters that'll wait for the right timing before he's going to engage and go into the action.
Quickly, do you think that that patience is going to hinder him, or is that going to help him in this matchup?
I think against Funballer specifically, it's going to be very important for him to just play safe and wait for the team fights.
Well, we got a video standing by featuring about Ataraxia. Let's go ahead and take a look at what...
Going from the Challenge Cup to SWC was very much a Cinderella story. That was the narrative that was drawn around it. and we definitely got swept up. You know, my favorite Smite moments, you know, those few months were amazing. My favorite memory, hands down, is at Worlds last year. I absolutely love playing on the ground. It's my favorite thing about doing all of this. And when we got the blind snipe in Game 3, the finals, against Nemesis himself, that was hands down my favorite thing, just hearing everybody, you know, the crowd roar and all that.
Once again dropping the ball. He should have reinitiated from max range. Ataraxia from the backline. Max range coming out of the barrage, finding a kill and keeping his team alive just for now.
And it's a shame that I'll never really get to experience it myself, but I'm always looking out for the next team that will, because it's such an amazing experience. And you know, any of these days, a team like Sanguine, for example, recently can go from that very bottom all the way to the top. And I'm super excited for the gauntlet to see if maybe another team can make that run. I think Titan split up because, you know, we'd been sitting, we went from second at Worlds to, you know, constantly second or third.
Their opponents today holding the #1 seed in Europe, fighting out of the wild card bracket. They have battled back from a 2-0 game deficit. They're wearing the red trunks, fighting out the top side of the minimap and the right side of the spectator UI. It is Titan!
I think we had a first seed, but never at LAN. You know, our LAN performance is always iffy, and I think that kind of, that long-term not living up to your potential as a team kind of takes a toll. And things just don't work as well as they used to, and I think that was it. You know, as a core 4 after Confi left, we just didn't work that well.
Once you get to the base, 60%, 30%, 20% down! The Titans, the world
Champions, continent pride, GG!
It's sad, but you know, it happens. A lot of teams have gone through it, and sadly, Titan was one of them. The big difference between this and Titan is we do not try as hard when it comes. It's just, everything's a lot more fun. The personalities are more fleshed out. I think everyone's got to know each other more on this team than we ever did on Titan. It's just, I don't know, it's a very different thing where we're not obsessed about winning in scrims. It's more about what we're learning from it, and I think that's very healthy. What's held me back from going back to Worlds? Probably me. I would say I'm a very big believer in, you know, I can do anything so long as I work hard enough. So if I've not made Worlds, I put that all on me. I've not prepared for a LAN as hard as I had personally for this one than any other before. So I'm really looking to prove what I can do and make it back to the world stage. We have to get more consistent. I think as players, we can, all of us, can rival or surpass everyone in that team in their roles. And that's every single one of us. I think the only thing we need to do is get more consistent and do more preparation. I think the preparation is a big downside for us right now. So that's something we've got to fix on, but consistency would be the main thing. I feel very confident. I feel like the skill ceiling for this team is really, really high. People just need to, you know, we just need to work as a unit and really put the work in and be consistent. So, you know, but I just want to get back to Worlds. I'm so excited to play on a big stage again. It's my favorite thing about Smite. I think that personally I play so much better when I do. Like a DreamHack and stuff, it was amazing to relive that. For me, Smite in the gaming isn't really about the money. It's definitely not about the money. It's about winning. I'm a super competitive person, so knowing that people think I'm very good at something is very egotistical of me, but it is a core bit of my personality. So to win for me personally and for what people think of me it's very important. I absolutely love it. You know, being on stage in front of a crowd it's not something I thought I'd like, but I actually really do. So I'd like to stay as a player for as long as possible, but if I can't, I would like to stay in the esports industry for as long as it'll have me, really, because it's amazing. You know, it's something I'm really passionate about. So. This year.
Well, that was the boy himself, Ataraxia. He's looking to make an impact, get himself back into Worlds. This is his chance. Toli and Taco, he says that he has a lot of belief in his team. They're in the picks and bans here. What do they need to do to make that belief come to fruition and get a good game?
Against members of Orbit, they need to find the right synergy to stop the aggression coming out of them. Because when we look at QvoFred, the jungler out of Orbit, when we look at Trixtank, those two frontliners are always going to be in position to make the plays. So it's very important of how Obey adapts to that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to know, in comparison to Orbit, Obey, the only person who really likes to take on that aggressive stance is Frezzy, or PandaLike, sorry, excuse me. But the thing is PandaLike's playstyle, since he tends to opt for that aggression, I think it's going to be really important for Obey to try and reel him back in and try to ensure that he plays more to their pacing of the game. That way they have a much better chance at controlling Orbit and trying to make sure this game goes to their pacing, because otherwise Orbit, I think, will run away with it. especially since they're opting into that Guan Yu Freya pick.
You never know where that Guan Yu is going to go between Orbit. That's a good flex pick opportunity for them. Xaliea could potentially run that. Trixtank more than likely will run that in the dual lane, though paired up with the late game Freya for Funballer.
Now, are they going to go and try to pick for Ataraxia at this point? Do they want to try and secure something for him, or are they going to let that slide, kind of secure some of these other positions?
If they were to pick something for him now, it would have been the Jing way. Now, without picking their traditional hunter at this point, OrbitGG have the option of banning Ataraxia out at this point. He's been known to play a lot of Jing ways. It's one of the safest hunters you can play in the game, going to be able to farm just very efficiently.
Yeah, I think another important thing to note too, like you pointed out with the Guan Yu being a flex pick, I think Orbit are definitely going to try and utilize the strategy of theirs because they are very keen on picking gods that they can definitely flex. And even now with the Ratatoskr pick coming in, you still don't know whether that's going to go jungle or into the solo lane for Xaliea. And so I think that makes it a bit more difficult on to obey. But I really like how they're opting for this double Guardian meta.
We've seen double Guardians before in the past, in the Group A actually coming out of Sanguine, how successful it was for them to actually sneak some wins under their belt to be able to actually qualify into that semifinal for this LAN in the Super Regionals. But now, with Obey having this Ymir and Terra, that is another good flex opportunity. We don't necessarily know which Guardian is going to go between solo or support.
So it looks like the Janus, the Janus bans have come out as well as Neith. And so OrbitGG, they've got Guan Yu, Freya, Ratatoskr, Terra, Nemesis, Ymir. What's the next pick here? Who has the advantage thus far, and where do you think they're going?
I definitely would have to give Orbit a little bit of a leeway because of that Janus ban. Because of these immobile gods out of Obey between this Ymir and Terra necessarily, this allows them to reposition themselves in the team fight. So very smart bans, not even to focus Ataraxia. You can tell that Orbit is not necessarily worried about this Hunter player. They're more worried about the mid PrettyPriMe.
Yeah, I think that Orbit's biggest concern here is that although Obey doesn't necessarily have the most mobile draft at the moment, at the same time, they have a very high CC controlling draft.
Right.
And the fact is, you know, you have the setup from Ymir, you have the setup from Terra, and Nemesis ult, whoever they go on, that's going to be perfect control on whichever side of the map they choose to engage. And so what I'm assuming Obey is going to be looking for is predominantly trying to take on those jungle fights to really cause a lot of mayhem to Orbit.
Jin Chen and Isis are locked away, and so now the picking begins. Orbit will be selecting their next god, and you talked about PrettyPriMe. We haven't mentioned CaptainTwig a lot. That mid jungle synergy that they have. Is this something that Orbit kind of need to look out for? Is this what Obey is essentially trying to, hinge their game plan on?
Absolutely. PrettyPriMe is one of those mid laners that is not afraid to expand his god pool about these high bursty mages. Some players will lean more towards the Isis or the Janus for the early laning control phase. Some will rely on the Ra, the Scylla, just to be able to follow up off of an aggressive jungler. And something to be known for Twig is just his tendencies to always invade in the solo side jungle. We've actually seen the matchup between Energy and Obey when it was Twig that was always invading and adapting was actually the one that was reacting. So we'll see if QvoFred is going to try to lean more on the aggressive side of CaptainTwig.
QvoFred, one of the kind of all-stars, so to speak, right now in Europe. He's definitely shown up. He's put himself in contention as one of the best junglers in the game in Smite. How do you think he's feeling now with this lineup, and what does he need to do in this game?
I think that he's going to be looking for something really solid in the early laning phase at this point. Between the mid-jungle synergy at this point for Obey, the Nemesis, Zeus, it's a lot of damage, but not that much control. So now the fact that the Ratatoskr gets locked in with the Poseidon for the last pick out of Orbit, that's a lot of burst damage. So they might be leaning more on trying to lock down Twig. If he goes in and his double dash is down, he's going to get punished.
Yeah, I definitely would personally prefer the draft of Obey, to be completely honest. Although I really like Orbit's draft, at the same time, I think that Obey have a lot of control, and with the Zeus coming out, it's definitely a comfort pick for PrettyPriMe. And I mean, Jing also, that's Ataraxia's go-to god most of the time, and I'm honestly really surprised that Orbit would let that through.
Well, Orbit versus Obey. Guys, before we head to the casters, Aggro and Hindu standing by, predictions for this first game.
I'll give the first one to Obey.
I'm actually liking Obey's draft a little bit more. They have more space control with the Zeus and the Terra. They both have sustain on their kit between the Terra and the Guan Yu for Orbit, but I gotta lean on the Zeus pick more than the Poseidon.
Well, we'll be able to watch and find out in just a sec. Aggro and Hindu on the cast. See you over there.
Thanks so much, Rain Day. That's not the right camera. This is the right camera. Me and Aggro obviously going to be bringing this game. Both these teams are just 3 wins away from going to the World Championships.
This is what it's all about, man. I mean, this is why you play. The group stage was fun and all, but it was all about getting here to Super Regionals. This is every team's chance to make it to Worlds, and this is it. I mean, this is their only chance.
This is the big one, the biggest one they're going to have this year to make it to the World Championships. Obey here, though. When we look at these compositions, interesting. No Ra, first of all. No Vulcan.
Overall, I would just... This is not what I was expecting as far as the drafting phase goes. Talking to Ataraxia, he was not expecting to be able to play Jing Wei in competitive play at all. And then it doesn't get banned initially. They don't pick it in the first 3. And then it still doesn't get banned after that next banning phase. And then you're looking at bans like Giannis and Isis, which, yes, would have fit very well with the compositions, but you're up against PrettyPriMe with no Vulcan bans, no, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But he goes to the Zeus anyways. And then the Poseidon pick for Lawbster. I mean, this draft was very surprising me on multiple levels.
Now, the Poseidon pick, that's a big one here, really, overall. But when you look at the lineup Obey have drafted here, Ymir, very immobile. Nemesis needs the double dash. Terra needs to dash again. And at the same time, Zeus is a sitting duck for the most part for these Whirlpool Krakens. It's going to force them to maybe go for Sanctuary as a secondary, which means they're going to have issues with the anti-heal to deal with Guan Yu.
That's a good point. And Poseidon has always done a very good job of punishing immobile gods that can't get out of that very potent Whirlpool slow. But talking to some of the players yesterday about, where certain gods are in the meta, I talked to MLC Stealth about Poseidon specifically, and he was telling me that he thinks Poseidon is one of the worst mages in the game right now for his money. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's just one opinion of a pro player.
Hey, that's EU versus NA all over again.
Exactly, that's how it always is.
Think Tier's good in EU and NA not so much. Different story. Start of the game though, nothing too crazy to talk about at the moment. You can see the right hand side, the camps have been cleared. Ymir will go to lane, played by Variety as Twig, looking for his 3rd time at the World Championships, goes to the right halfpiece.
Variety just buying his team some time with that double freeze. Lawbster may or may not have actually gotten some of those mid camps there on the right hand side, and you can see neither mid laner going for that Dynasty Plate Helm start that you usually see. Both going for this damage-oriented option right off the bat. Soulstone Tiny Trinket is the most damage you can have in the mid lane for your mid-Harpy fight, and that's what both mid laners have gone for here.
Because the left-hand Harpy is going to go the way of Obey more than likely. They're the first ones there. Orbit still have to clear the wave in the mid lane here. And obviously, we heard the analysts say they kind of favor Obey's comp here. Aggro, how are you feeling?
I have to agree with them. I mean, just looking, you give up Terra, you give Ataraxia his Jing Wei, his premier pick, basically. And this is something that I was also kind of surprised about, because if you watch the group stage in Group C, Ataraxia had a tough time up against Freya. And talking to him afterwards, he was telling me that he just doesn't have a Freya killer in his god pool necessarily, as long as Jing Wei is banned, which he assumes it's going to be because of his history with it.
Well,
here,
not this time.
It wasn't banned. This is a Freya killer sort of hunter. You want someone that can really trade poke with Freya aggressively, as well as take advantage when her cooldowns are down. And Jing Wei is the character to do that.
And we know for a fact that Ataraxia loves the Jing Wei, very dominant on it as well, one of his major go-to. Same thing can be said, though, for Funballer on the Freya here. These two hunters, we weren't going to talk about them too much here, because I expect this to be a farm-off lane for the most part, as we see some poke coming out there. But for the most part, you should be farming until the mid-game.
That's what you expect out of these two. I mean, Freya definitely needs those 3 items online. We talk about it all the time. She needs the boots, the Fatalis, and then the ring of her choice. It can be Demonic Grip, it can be ring of Telkine's ring, rather. Either one, you're going to be really ready to go as soon as you get those 3 items. And Jing Wei, kind of the same way. Really wants that boots in probably Ichival combination, though up against the Magical Hunter, we could see Ataraxia go for a more late-game oriented build, like a Devourer's Gauntlets. We'll have to see what he wants to go for here.
We can see the difference between the two mid lanes. A little bit more mobility for the side of Lawbster here on the Poseidon. Got his tier 2 boots online. Tier 1's only available there for PrettyPriMe on the Zeus, as the dual lane still trading off, as you'd expect.
I love the Ymir pick here for Variety, by the way. We haven't talked about it yet, and this is one of Variety's premier gods. When we talk about Variety, it's always Tyr or it's always Ymir. But in this composition specifically, that's a hard word to say, the walls are going to be really difficult for Orbit to deal with. Trixtank can't get over a wall. Funballer can't get over a wall. Lawbster, Qvo needs his ult. Xaliea can't either. It's definitely going to be tough for Orbit to fight variety in the jungle, and we know how good those walls can be.
And the biggest key here is when I look at Obey, there's a lot of comfort picks on both teams realistically here, especially the side of Obey. PandaLike not seen too much Terra play, but with him personally, I mean, to be fair, it's Terra, right? Anyone can press it. You just press 4 and you win the game.
That's sometimes, yes. I mean, Terra doesn't have a 100% win rate, but it may as well be sometimes.
Well, here's the first gank of the game. Twig is over on the right-hand side here looking at Xaliea. Very good Nemesis here up against the Sobek if he can get in range. But this time round, not going to find the option there. The freeze a little bit too early from variety.
I think that's what it was the freeze came out, and you want to use your Nemesis ult before any other skills because you want that extra protection shred before you start hitting them with your magical abilities. There, just maybe a little bit of communication.
Still poke going off in the duo lane from Orbit. They've really pressured this lane heavily already, and I guess you kind of want that as the Guan Yu and the Freya together.
That's why you pick the Guardians or the Warrior support. That's why you want that Guardian or Warrior rather there, because he's going to provide that extra push. Plus, the Guan Yu pick here definitely does help out with your sustain. I mean, you know Terra's going to bring the sustain, but Guan Yu can do it as well.
Well, left-hand ball's being invaded by Orbit. The left-hand harpies were contested there too. And as you can see at the top of your screen there, twitch.tv/hi-rez-comms2 and hi-rez-comms1, you can live listen into the players. So whenever Aggro speaks, you can unmute that stream and listen to the comms. But then whenever I speak, you should mute the comms and everything's good.
How are they going to know when you're speaking? Should we have like a little bow tie pop up when you're about to talk?
I mean, to be fair, when you shut up, I speak, right?
Yeah, I guess.
That's kind of how it works.
If they've got a muted Hindu, how are they going to know?
Oh,
You haven't thought about this at all.
You're very smart, you.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that, actually.
I know it is, right? Analysis, the best I've seen so far. There's the net worth on your screen for you guys at home. At the moment, you can see QvoFred doing good work in the jungle on the Ratatoskr so far. Only a 60 to 50 gold lead over that of CaptainTwig. But Ratatoskr here, Qvo's got a big game on his shoulders, I want to say, with how this game is looking.
And there's been a lot of talk about Qvo during the group stages and now going into super regionals. You know, is this the guy that could actually dethrone Adapting as the best jungler in the world or in Europe, either one really? And I know Adapting really likes to use that as motivation for himself, but Qvo's played out of his mind ever since DreamHack. He's been absolutely lights out. And you're right, if Orbit want to go up against this composition that seems to be very well crafted from Obey, they're going to need Qvo to come up big.
And he's going to go against CaptainTwig here in the jungle, who's on that Nemesis, one of his go-tos. He's been playing it for most of this year. And CaptainTwig has the limelight today for me, just because of the fact that he's the only remaining European player that can make 3 world championships in a row. The boys of Fnatic, who he used to be with, none of the other players are either in the scene anymore or failed to qualify the likes of Zeros to get to this stage. Twig can go for the 3rd year in a row.
And we know that someone from North America will have that honor because you've got Annenster and Baskin. Oh, hold that thought. Xaliea pulls him into tower, but the Nemesis ult going to take a little bit of protections away.
The rotation coming around from the Ratatoskr too, though, so important. Variety's in a lot of trouble here. He was trying to support for Twig, and Lawbster gets credit for the kill. The Acons do work as Trixtank comes in as well, just to slow down PrettyPrime's rotation with the support of PandaLike.
This is what you have to do up against Ymir. You just abuse that immobility that he has. You pluck him into tower, the Nemesis ult comes out to strip away some of the protections from Xaliea, but the rotation from the rest of Orbit was on point. Qvo right on the money as soon as the timing was necessary to pop up and get that kill onto Variety.
And you talk about being on the money here. Well, Twig in the jungle going to take a little bit of poke, but the shield comes up. The right Harpies will go the way of Orbit because of that too. But the big key here is the Poseidon in mid lane got the kill. And Poseidon in the early stages of the game, Lawbster here, this is where he's going to shine because there's no secondary relic. There is no sanctuary on anyone on the roster of Obey.
I think that's why you're seeing Obey be so willing to just farm out this early game. Is not only do you have that Nemesis kind of late game jungler overall, but you have the ability, once you hit level 12, to keep that Kraken from hitting you with that Sanctuary. You can see that Lawbster does have about a 600 gold lead on top of PrettyPrime right now, but like I was just talking about, they're okay with that. This composition that Obey has is very, very good in the mid to late game. The problem is that Orbit can say the exact same thing about their composition. They've got the Freya, they've got the Guan Yu, which can be a win condition in itself with that amount of sustain. And once these 2 Guardians come out of this solo lane, both have the potential to make a big impact in the team fight.
And this feels like Xaliea just wanted to stalemate this lane, something rotten here, picking the Sobek into this. He didn't want to have to fight Variety's Ymir whatsoever. He went for Sobek, so he brings the same sort of utility, I guess, towards the later stages of this game, as well as some nice anti-heal to deal with that Terra.
That's big, is the anti-heal from Sickening Strike, as well as the fact that you see that Xaliea went for the Wrath, whereas Variety did not. Variety has been playing Guardians in the solo lane for a while, but has never really picked up that Wrath. That's not his sort of preferred style. He likes to go for this teleport right off the bat, and usually for a blink on that second relic, though sometimes we will see the meditation as well. Here, this means that Xaliea probably going to be going for that teleport as soon as he hits level 12 in 2 levels, so he's not going to have that meditation or blink engage that Variety will have, but they do have that objective secure.
Well, a big fight over these Fire Elementals right now between the two. Obviously, the junglers like to sit on the right-hand side of the map at the beginning of the game, just because those Fire Elementals are worth 90 gold in total for all 3 of them, so why not get them and get that little bit of a boost there? But that also puts some pressure onto the solo lane, and that's why you're seeing CaptainTwig more often than not camping there, because he's great against Sobek.
Ataraxia forced to use the airstrike there, I guess didn't have the agility available, so that means that he's going to be a little bit more vulnerable for the next couple seconds, about a minute and a half, until that ultimate is back online. And you mentioned how much time CaptainTwig's been spending on the right-hand side of the map, and you can see even though Ymir has the superior clear over the Sobek, it's Xaliea who has the about 300 gold advantage just because Variety has shared so many waves with Twig.
Also because he died for the first blood too, and that little back that came into play as well. But there's a bait from Orbit here around the Gold Fury, looking for PandaLike to walk in, but Panda's taunting. He knows.
This is what PandaLike does. He taunts you. But Orbit likes to do the Gold Fury. Xaliea isn't here with the Wrath, but it's going to be tried and secured. Orbit does get it thanks to the Kraken, but PandaLike wants to chase it down.
Yeah, Ataraxia dashing in too with agility, trying to get in range of Lawbster, and Lawbster taking a lot of poke for a second. Ratatoskr in the sky now as well as Funballer uses the ultimate. And with the QvoFred in the sky, Obey have to fall back. They're not going to find anything in response.
Full on disengage. And we talked about how the Wrath is going to be important to secure that Gold Fury, but how about the Kraken? I mean, that's another use of that big damage ultimate that you see be put to work by Lawbster. Free Gold Fury goes the way of Orbit, puts them about 1,800 gold in the lead.
I do like what Obey did here. They did just steal away the speed buff away from Orbit's jungle, though, because they went for that Gold Fury. They will try and limit it a little bit and get some of that gold back with the right and Harpies too. But Xalia's here now and looking for a bit of pressure as well, making sure he can keep an eye on where the boys of Obey are going.
PandaLike going to be able to sustain up any of that poke, though. He's not really worried about it. On the right-hand side, CaptainTwig looking to defend his buff from QvoFred. The presence of PandaLike makes Qvo think twice about trying to invade on this speed and trade it out.
And we can see as well, Lawbster has that 1 kill of the game so far. Looks like he is working towards that Gem of Isolation as well. Obviously, Aggro, we've not seen too much of Gem of Isolation, but the recent buffs have actually started to impact him. We've seen it a little bit more often.
Before the buffs, Gem of Isolation was a pretty much straight utility item. I mean, you were getting 70 power and 250 health, so it wasn't all bad. You know, it wasn't no power added to you. 70 power is still pretty good, but the buff up to 90 power is pretty significant. It means that you aren't trading off nearly as much damage. Gem of Isolation is an expensive item, so going for it early in the game can kind of set you far behind in the damage department, which is not what Poseidon wants to do. I mean, Poseidon in the early game, his job is to Whirlpool Kraken your brains out and win a team fight for you. But as the game transitions to the later stages, Poseidon goes from this burst mage to a utility mage.
Control.
Whirlpool is a control ability without a doubt. It's zone, and if you go for this Gem of Isolation, you can really trap someone in there. Someone like a Terra, or like a Nemesis, or a Ymir. If you see Trixtank stun someone immediately into a Whirlpool, even without the Kraken, that additional slow on the Whirlpool from the Gem of Isolation will lock those tanky characters in place. And you could be tanky all you want, but if you're standing still, you're not going to be able to survive.
Well, it is still early game, though, so Lawbster may look for the Warlock Sash potentially as well. We'll just keep an eye on that. However, his lane opponent here, PrettyPriMe on the Zeus, gone straight into the Pythax piece.
And this is an interesting choice here, but I like it because you do want a little bit of CDR on Zeus. You want to be able to have that detonate up as much as possible, but you also need the power. And you've got multiple magical damage dealers on your side. You're giving Variety an additional 30 magical power by picking up this item, as long as he's around you in the team fight. Even Terra, even though it's not a big deal for her power-wise and on her skills, remember, you get more healing depending on her power whenever she uses her ultimate. So if Terra's nearby Zeus, whenever she pops that ultimate and then you get the heal off, you're going to be healing for a little bit more thanks to that 30 power from the Pythagoras piece.
Well, it's no surprise at 12 minutes in we've only had 1 kill and 1 Gold Fury down. This is Europe after all, and they will take it slow in the land stages. Funballer, however, he's not going slow right now. Ataraxia is having to put good use to that passive, it seems.
Rapid Reincarnation is one of the best passives in the game. I don't think you can really contest that. Being able to get a free teleport, basically. You can see Ataraxia backs. He'll probably only miss 2 minions on that left-hand side, even if only 1. But Qvo knows that he's going to have to come back, and he's heading over for the gank.
And we'll see what they can actually do against Ataraxia here as well. He's still going to pressure onto the tower. Need that agility, but agility down now. Could be a sign for Qvo, who's still in the ball pit, watching over the wall. He is farming at the same time here, don't forget. That's why he's hanging around. But he's gone to the sky, and he might be looking for Ataraxia right now. Nope, changes his mind, just takes the farm.
Ataraxia was able to back just in time, was trying to kind of, psych him out a little bit maybe by going up into that ultimate. Instead, Ataraxia trusts in his timing and gets back to base safely.
Interesting build coming out here as well from PandaLike on the Terra. We're seeing Choose a Focus straight into Breastplate of Valor. He's going for full cooldowns here.
Full cooldown, no additional health in there, no Sovereignty or Heartward Amulet to help out the team. Wouldn't be too shocked to see him go into a Wingblade after this either. He's going to need the slow immunity.
PandaLike's in a bit of trouble here, but he's going to be able to walk away with the help of a wall as well, and the ability of just being Terra.
This is the wall composition, basically. You don't have the On Her, the Thor, but you do have the Terra walls, which can be used very effectively to block off pathing, not only for the stun and damage, as well as, of course, the wall from Variety.
We do see the Gem of Isolation on Lawbster, which we expected to go there, but there is a relic slot left on the side of Orbit here, and it is on Trixtank on that Guan Yu. Could we potentially see a Phantom here? Is it really that wise to get one, maybe?
No, I think Shell is the obvious choice here. Shell is so effective up against that Zeus ultimate. Anytime you've got a big AoE damage, you want Shell. That is the best counter to things like Chain Lightning even. You want to be able to use Shell against Chain Lightning if you get caught in the wrong spot in the jungle. I'd expect to see a Shell picked up here.
Well, the Gold Fury has spawned and it's immediately hit on by Orbit as Ataraxia turns up to show his presence and force Orbit away. They're not going to get this one for free. With a teleport coming in early, however, though, from Variety by the looks of it, I think that could have been a small mistake.
I like the idea from Orbit to just pull that and see what is Obey going to do about this, but I think you're right. Variety did not need to burn that teleport, but you see that Xaliea didn't even go for teleport.
Yeah, we did see the level 12 reach by Xaliea. He's now level 15, but he went for the sprint instead there to go along with the Wrath. So they're not going to have the teleport to deal with potentially sitting there. It's going to be the boys of Obey this time. They're going to pull the Gold Fury, and at the same time, the left-hand side, Funballer trading with Twig, and Twig getting the best of it. Gold Fury is reset for now as Variety's going around the right to deal with Lawbster. Funballer's being pressured on thanks to the ultimate coming out from PandaLike too, but at the moment, Qvo's in a bit of trouble here.
Gonna have to go up into that ultimate, should be able to be safe even through the detonate. Is about half HP, so he does back up. Xaliea has made the rotation. He's here. Wrath is available.
Very patient between these two teams here. Orbit just sat back nicely for a long time. Only PrettyPriMe really has his ultimate available here to make an impact. There is a Wrath on the side of Xaliea, and he's going to lurk in the waters to get back to his team and force Obey back.
Trixtank in a bad spot, though. Twig going to be able to pick him up right away. PandaLike in the back line trying to keep everyone else out.
Jesus, are you here? He is right now for Ataraxia. 2 crits on 2 aura attacks. Are you serious? Funballer forced to ult against Twig. The boys of Obey still trying to bring down this Gold Fury, but Xalia's here once again, getting stacked up by PrettyPriMe. The ult is dropped too.
Stunned in it.
The walls from the stun is great to pick up a kill, and Twig gets credit.
Both kills going the way of CaptainTwig. Lawbster is still here, doesn't have the ultimate quite yet, about halfway up. Qvo stunned for now. Ataraxia doesn't want to get the Gold Fury. He wants to kill Lawbster.
Sanctuary used as well, and Lawbster's in a lot of trouble. The body blocks from Twig to zone him away, and Lawbster will take an exit to his own jungle. Airstrike force, but Obey, they get the Gold Fury. As Twig in mid, he's trying to live, but he can't live long enough. Funballer, credit for the kill.
Tell me if you've heard this one before from Obey. CaptainTwig sacrifices himself for the good of the team. Like, this is what Twig does. He zones out Lawbster, he zones out Qvo with the help of Ataraxia, and Ataraxia is supposed to be the passive guy, Hindu. He's supposed to be the one who doesn't want to dash in and fight you there. He dashes in. PandaLike get a fall to Funballer underneath the middle lane, and even though Obey get the Gold Fury, 2 kills
go the way of Orbit, and it could be the mid tower as well.
If they can get this mid tower, but I don't think they're going to have enough time to do this before Prime is back in the mid lane. So overall, the game goes even. They're going to invade the speed buff on this right-hand side, though. Take that one away from CaptainTwig again. And you mentioned, you know, Ataraxia and what he did in that team fight. It kind of comes back to those two crits in a row that hit Trixtank. They took away the sustain, and then Ataraxia's feeling himself going aggressive then.
It certainly doesn't hurt, and you can see top of the player damage charts right now. There's a reason that Ataraxia doesn't get to play Jing very often. It is the character that he does feel comfortable being aggressive on, and you can see he's going into the short sword already. He's got the penetration online from the Executioner. He doesn't want any additional attack speed after that Ichabod as well, so he's going straight to roll better on those crits from the explosive bolts, as well as just in your traditional in-hands. And we've seen Ataraxia go for this kind of interesting build when it comes to Jing sometimes. He'll even go for the Poison Star whenever he wants to. You go for that triple crit option because you're getting additional crit chance from that explosive bolts.
We'll see where he ends up going with the rest of his build now. However, his lane opponent has 2 kills. Funballer on the Freya has Fatalis finish, Boots online, and Pythagorean's piece as well. So he's going to be dishing out a lot of damage now, and we've already 2 kills to his name. You've got to keep an eye on him as well.
So I mentioned that usually Freya's will go for the ring third item. It's either Demonic or Telkine's ring. But this time you see that Funballer is actually just going for a more damage-oriented item. He's not going to have the same attack speed, which really does translate to damage for Freya. Again, her Pulse and Irradiate kind of steroids on her auto attacks really synergize best with time, or with attack speed rather, because they're time-based. It's not a set amount of auto attacks. But you do have the advantage of having your ultimate hit harder with the Pythags piece, as well as upping the damage that Lawbster is going to do in the mid lane. Plus, having a little bit of CDR does make a good difference for Freya.
Well, 3-man rotation over towards Variety. Now Variety sees it coming, but the wall is dropped. Ultimate to try and avoid the stun. Turns damage to Lawbster. Kraken hits 2, but he's still tanky Variety. He's still standing tall. Next on the list are the boys of Orbit, trying to fall back away from PandaLike. And PrettyPriMe and Twig, who turn up to save Variety.
How did Variety just live? It was a shell. CaptainTwig picked up the shell and was able to use it against the Kraken
Ataraxia is here, but they spotted him in the jungle, going to force him to gust and agility away. As meanwhile, in the mid lane, Funballer is taking a tier 1 tower for free. Orbit, they're the ones that gank right-hand side. They're the ones that get rotated on by Obey. But Orbit, they're the ones that find a tower in mid.
Moving everyone around, but Variety's finding people. 2-man freeze from the back.
Next up is Xaliea, and Xalea's tail whipping to try and stay alive. Next in the back line, you can see the pressure from Funballer. Force the Sanctuary, the detonate, very good use of that. The wall will force his ultimate as well. But Funballer, he needs help. He's surrounded. He's not going to get any, and Twig will take his 3rd kill of the game.
Perfect teleport from Variety. You know Xaliea doesn't have it. Variety does. He teleports after he's low health around the back. Blink, double freeze, crits from Ataraxia. Variety is the entire reason that fight gets won, but it's because CaptainTwig shelled him perfectly for the Kraken that he was able to survive and get that teleport in. That's teamwork coming together for Obey.
And now it's Orbit on the defensive look, and the wall is already used there by Xaliea to zone them away, but he eats a lot of damage, and the detonate picks him up. Trixtank is now being forced out by Ataraxia. Prime giving chase too. Another crit. How many more has he got in the bag?
He's got the rage, man. It's going to help him out. That rage blade upping his crit chance every time he doesn't get a crit on his auto attack, thanks to that passive. Ataraxia has played absolutely lights out this game, but for me, it's been CaptainTwig. He's been on point with his Nemesis ultimates. He's got 3 of the 5 kills and has opened up this Fire Giant at only 20 minutes.
Well, let's listen into Obey's comms as they look at the Fire Giant.
We have to fight them. We have to fight healing.
Beside Niggas, beside Niggas. Kill him. Back in a
Right in here, right in here.
Chill.
Chill.
Wait for result, wait until the ult. Stop damage.
Kill them again.
Stop.
Freya on me.
I got it on Freya.
Fire. This is risky. Reset. Sobek's back up.
Mid camps, right mid.
Get mid camps, get on the farm.
They won't back.
They're on it.
They're just baiting. Back out.
Just be careful, guys. We want to reset, go gold.
They reset.
I can get like full shard here, so I want to back. Freya beats down, by the way, Fuzzy. Freya beats down. That's on the next one. Put everybody in left jungle, guys. Don't be fucking greedy.
Don't be too greedy.
I'm going left, okay? I'm going to pick up red buff. Yeah. Not everyone back. Twig, you should stay around. Let's just back.
I've got like 3k, dude.
Are we just gonna...
We should go gold. Take it for
Freya has no beats. We have to force the fight and get the kill of her.
Guys, I'm so fucking huge.
Yeah, I'm on kill.
Well, you got a nice little listen to Obey's comms there, and my oh my, they're looking confident. Their voice comms are pretty clear as well.
So calm.
Yes.
I cannot believe how calm they are. I mean, this is a team that, like the analysts mentioned, that really could not break into that top 2 in Europe. And it's only one game. They understand that this is a best of 5 and that this game is nowhere close to over. Only a 3K gold lead, but all of the momentum is in Obey's hands. And I love the builds coming out, by the way, for many members of Obey. I love the runic shield on CaptainTwig, shutting down that magical power on both Poseidon and Freya, as well as the attack speed from Freya. And then I love the winged blade onto PrettyPriMe.
Well, there's a lot of investment onto variety so far from Orbit. It's not really come to anything. He's still 0-1-6 and still in a comfortable position, equal on level with that of Xaliea. The Gold Fury pulled again by Obey. It looks like they really want to fight here, though. They don't want to take this straight up unless they get given it, which I don't think Orbit will do.
That's because Xaliea has that Wrath, so it's going to be tough for them to secure it. Over top of that, here's the engage coming in. Qvo up in the sky, going to come crashing down onto Ataraxia. But the Sanctuary was perfect.
He's still alive as well because of that, and then they're going to turn up to Xaliea, who's down next. Trixtank isolated from his team after cavalry charging in. He's next to 4. The front line of Orbit is in tatters, and now the Gold Fury can be engaged again.
This is a completely different Ataraxia for me. I mean, when was the last time you saw Ataraxia way forward from everyone else in his team? Totally by himself, but uses the Sanctuary perfectly. The Rat ult, the Kraken, all immune by that Sank, baits the team perfectly. He stays alive. 2 kills and the Gold Fury. Obey controlling this game.
And now they're going to get a tier 1 tower in mid lane as well. Orbit really on the back foot at 23 minutes in the game, I should say, for the time being. And don't forget, I mean, there is 3 players on this roster of Obey that have been to the World Championships before. 2 of them made the finals, and that's Prime and Ataraxia. And right now, they're showing why they made the finals 2 years ago.
So much confidence, so much calm. I mean, again, going back to those comms, just perfect understanding of calm down. You know, okay, Lawbster's coming in, kill Poseidon. All right, back up. Okay, Rat's in the air. Let's just back up. Let's just wait for him to ult. We'll kill him after his Sank runs out. Things like that. Just veteran leadership coming out of Obey, and I love the way they're playing right now.
It's an 8,000 gold lead here between the two. And you can see the itemization between the two teams to see where that gold has all gone to as well. Most players now starting to approach that 6 iron, and the net worth, well, would you be surprised to see it's Ataraxia at the top right now?
Not at all. CaptainTwig as well has had a phenomenal game, level 19, 4-1-5. He's second as far as the total gold goes. And Variety, like you mentioned, has been the focus for Orbit during much of this game, but only with 1 death, with how immobile he is against his composition, speaks a lot to how confident he is on this Ymir.
And the thing is, I can see Variety is very important on this Ymir to neutralize and make sure he's not involved in this game aggro, but you're ignoring a Nemesis, you're ignoring a Zeus, and you're ignoring a Jing, and even if you get through all those, you've still got to deal with Terra.
Again, it just comes back to this draft for me. I mean, I'm so surprised that Orbit let so many people have their comfort picks. CaptainTwig gonna find Xaliea thanks to the freeze from Variety. Sprint is popped. Trix is the target for Obey.
Trying to hold ultimates there, Robert. You could see it in them, and Trixtank is ended up forced to use it, and Qvo as well, as he was going to the backside, so 2 ultimates down. Variety surrounded, but he should be fine. He's got support coming.
And Xaliea in a bad spot right now. CaptainTwig front-lining for them. Ataraxia, though, with that Terra's blessing, just gas-pedaling through. 2 kills for him already.
But once again, patient zone. Immediately, you could even see it on himself. Normally, you see players go ham at that moment and like, let's get them all. I want the penta, but no. Cool, calm, collected. Obey heading to the Fire Giant.
And you can see that in these team fights where objective is the focus, Xaliea has been the priority target because of that Wrath that he has. I've loved the target selection from Obey, and it's just, there's so much speed on their side. I mean, you've got the sprint coming out from the support player PANDALIKE. You've also got the Terra's Blessing. Ataraxia has the Fatalis effect whenever he knocks himself up and uses agility, and there's just no running away from that. That's why Xaliea was forced into the sprint. They needed some sort of disengage, but even with it, it just isn't enough.
Well, as the gold lead grows, the experience lead is still growing at the moment too, and the experience lead for me is probably an even bigger picture here of how the game's gone. 8,500 experience in favor of Obey. This is why they're destroying them, just based on pure hard levels.
It's really, it comes down to that movement speed again. I think the more that I think about it, the wing blades, the Terra's Blessing, the sprints, there's just, this is the composition, that's the idea for Obey's comp as a whole. Mobility, even with immobile characters like
Zeus.
Ymir. like Zeus. As long as you give a mobile characters mobility, and all of a sudden it is very, very difficult to deal with them. PrettyPriMe, his positioning has been absolutely perfect. No surprise there. That's one of the best things about his mid lane play.
Well, if you're watching at home and you're European right now, you'll probably be saying, if you're a fanboy of Orbit too, you'd be saying classic Orbit, because they do this a lot in serious games where they lose the first game and they look awful. I'm just hoping they can step it up for game 2 now, because so far, I mean, they got that 1 kill at the start of the game, but since then, it's been all Obey.
This is going to be the left Phoenix, another crit coming through for Ataraxia. CaptainTwig trades out a little bit of poke onto QvoFred, but has the sustain from Terra to just stay healthy.
And that's just going to help them out even more as time goes on. Still have a meditate on Terra as well if they need it for PandaLike here. PandaLike not really been spoken about, but got 10 assists to his name so far. So near enough 100% kill participation. Can't quite have it though. But here's the engage again. Cavalry charge from Trix. Cuvo in the sky, looking for variety. And on the backside, Zeus, whose sanctuary is away. Cuvo in a world of hurt. Good Kraken coming out from Lawbster, but there's no damage on it, and Twig will take out the rat.
It only tickled Variety. PrettyPriMe getting very low, but the knockout gonna keep him alive for now. Variety picks up Trixtank. Lawbster in a ton of trouble.
Funballer needs to make something happen, but I don't think he can now as a double kill goes the way Variety and Twig takes that Lobster. The Phoenix is already dead, and Obey's like, you know what, Funballer? You might be level 20. You might be considered one of the top teams in Europe, but right now, boy, we're taking a 1-game lead in less than 30 minutes. Are you serious? Obey have never beaten Orbit.
This is, and what a time for it to happen. I mean, first game here in a best-of-5 set. Getting off on the right foot is so important in a series like this. And talk about getting off on the right foot. I mean, Variety played you can't say enough good things about the whole of Obey. They all played great.
Cool, calm, collected throughout. You listen to the comms there. You saw exactly what they did as well. Like, you saw Ataraxia get a double, and they immediately go to fire. They don't go chasing for the kills, which they could have technically gone for that, found a Phoenix and tried to end, but instead, play it the safe way, take the advantages, and stump your opposition.
And you mentioned it, I mean, this is a team filled with veterans. You've got guys like Ataraxia and PrettyPriMe who went to Worlds in Season 1. You've got CaptainTwig, who's the only European who has a chance to be to all 3 World Championships. Just unbelievable lights-out play from Obey. And they came in with a very clear strategy, and Orbit actually kind of picked into it. I mean, they just had no mobility in the mid lane. Poseidon's got the extra movement speed from his passive, but that Whirlpool slow with Gem of Isolation doesn't really do a whole lot for you up against Wing Blades and Sprints.
I don't think the Poseidon pick was necessarily bad, because I think it's good against the comp he was against, but I think the biggest issue there was letting the other team get all that comfort picks.
And it was, again, it came down to Ataraxia on Jing for me. I mean, you know that we saw him struggle up against Freya during the group stages whenever he wasn't able to get that god. If you're going to be picking Freya early, why not ban away the best Freya killer that Nate has in his god pool? You know he's been working on it, you know, in between the group stage and now, so I'm sure that Orbit knows that he's got something else that he can play in that sort of scenario, but why give him, like, his marquee god? I was very perplexed by that.
Well, that's only game 1. It's a best of 5, and the analysts with Rain Day are ready to tell us all about what they thought went wrong.
Well, that was one exciting game, I have to say, and I mean, you called it. You both said it. Obey was going to take this one, and they end up taking it very convincingly. And I hear Ataraxia in his video saying that he was worried about their previous iffy LAN experiences. Didn't seem iffy today.
Not at all. There was a few question marks for Orbit, but I'm more leaning about the positive side of Obey. They committed to a strategy where they were the tank killers. You know, the Nemesis, the Ymir wall, even the build coming out of Ataraxia, going for Warrior Tabby, Ichabod, Executioner against a Freya Magical Hunter is not something you're used to seeing, right? So their whole strategy was trying to pick off these tanks, and they executed it perfectly. We didn't even see a second kill up until like the 15-minute mark. That's how slow the game started off.
Yeah. And one of the things we were talking about, Taco, behind the scenes was that, you know, maybe we're questioning Ataraxia's build. What path was he going? He could have gone for Devil Gloves, rushed that early while Funballer's trying to get Fatalis online for Freya. He was kind of just farming, but it ends up really working out for them. Talk about him and his performance in this game. I mean, if he shines, does Obey win?
I think the biggest thing to take away from it was I think his main reasoning behind not opting for that Devil's Gloves build that we discussed later on was just the fact that he wasn't really looking for that 1v1 opposition with Funballer. He doesn't really want to look for the aggressive trades. He just wanted to play completely team-oriented because that is his playstyle, and he executed it perfectly. Every single time they were engaging, it was always off of that Nemesis ult, always off of the Terra roots or the CC from her wall stun. And then you had the Ymir freezes and the Ymir walls, and who better to chase down somebody for a kill than a Jing Wei?
Yeah, Ataraxia definitely played very intelligently with his build, but he definitely played a different style than what we're used to seeing, because there was a point in time where he actually was in front of the action, baiting himself out, absorbing that Ratatoskr ultimate and the Kraken, which actually allowed Obey to get that Gold Fury and then get that gold lead eventually.
Now, we talked a lot about Ataraxia, but one of the big names that stood out for me was Variety. Variety getting one of his marquee gods, Tyr or Ymir. He got the Ymir, and he performed well. It seemed like every single moment, Orbit was trying to focus him down. They got so many Krakens onto him, and in many ways, it was an easy target, but they just couldn't burst him.
Despite the first blood onto Variety for Orbit, it was still a good transition that Variety did, because he built into that Spirit's Robe, so he absorbed a lot of cooldowns, damaged, mitigated a bunch of abilities as well. So it was very difficult for Orbit to get any follow-up kills as a result. He was just the whipping boy of Obey, I would say.
It's really difficult, I would say, especially when you have an Ymir of all Guardians, probably one of the tankiest ones, picking up that Spirit Robe, and then he opted straight away into the Genji's Guard as well. So not only is he incredibly immune to the Freya and Poseidon damage, which they kept trying to dump into him, and I think the main reason behind that is just they were trying to break through, maybe, you know, lock him away so that way they can try and get into the back line, but it just seemed like Prime and Ataraxia were so comfortably free casting in that backline, and I think that PandaLike and Variety especially did an excellent job in ensuring that their carries stayed, you know, with the potential to carry.
And speaking of the Spirit's Robe and the Genji's Guard, all the magical defense, I feel like Orbit almost went too much magical damage heavy, where we saw the Freya, we saw the Poseidon last pick, and the Sobek in the Soul Lane, and as a result, maybe they could have last picked a traditional physical hunter for Lawbster. He's been known to play some of these physical hunters, which would have been able to actually get away from the Ymir walls and survive a little bit longer.
So do you think it was more of basically a lack of correctly picking for Orbit versus Obey? They just kind of had the stellar lineup, it seemed like, to counter everything that Orbit was trying to do.
I would say that Obey had their comfort picks, and Orbit didn't really play around that. Instead, they were trying to execute their own strategy instead of adapting to Obey's strategy. We saw the Ymir and Variety, Ataraxia playing their Jing, and I feel like moving into Game 2, that Orbit are going to have to adapt and maybe look for more of these bans that Obey are just so comfortable with.
Well, if you're Orbit in Game 2, what is your kind of next step, Taco? What are you trying to do here?
I think one thing that they really need to take away from this is, sure, you can maybe let a couple of comfort picks slide through, but you can't permit an entire team to draft exactly what they would probably want to draft.
Right.
It's just like Hindu and Aggro were touching on before they threw it over to us. It's too much at one time. You can't let Variety get Ymir. You can't let PrettyPriMe get Zeus. He's actually, that's a really comfortable pick for him. He loves playing Zeus. And Jingwei, I mean, that goes for itself. He's probably one of the strongest characters against Freya, and the fact that they would let that slide through into the last pick even, like Toli and I were honestly pretty baffled by that, and we were expecting it to at least get banned in the third and fourth picking, but it just happened, and I mean, there's really not much that Orbit could do to prevent anything other than, I think they really need to seriously stop permitting these comfort picks, if anything, and try to ensure that they can keep their own pocket strats and whatnot, but you can't let Jingwei go through again.
This could also be a thing where Orbit are testing the waters. This is a best-of-5 set, and this is only the first game at this point. Obviously, Obey has been known to run these picks. Orbit, they have a lot of flexing in all of their picks between solo, jungle, even the Guardian position at times. So we could see a lot of other interesting strategies coming of them in the future games.
If you're